The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
It's off-season dry run Tuesday, folks. No games on Monday night. So this is what life will be like in 2 days. And it's a sad time because as I got ready for this podcast, I thought to myself, well, crap, I can't just talk about the things that are happening. I mean, I can, or I could. It's probably the better tense to use. Listen, you don't get the nickname pedantic for nothing over here. I could talk about things that are happening. Because even with a day off, there's still stuff going on, but mostly things that we talked about on yesterday's pod anyway. So what I thought I might do today is take a little, very small, this is like an eyedropper's worth of what the offseason will be like. I will give you a little bit of an indication of how the offseason scheduling is going to take place. And by the way, you're not going to have to change much in terms of your listening habits. It might vary ever so slightly, but it won't be a big-time difference maker on that front. And on the teardropper I was talking about, this eyedropper, just a little bit of a flavor of the offseason by looking at some of the max free agents, or who we consider to be potential max free agents, and what that might mean for your fantasy teams right now. So this is what my plan was. For us, for Keeper League, the Keeper League that I'm in, and there's only one of them, I've sort of made a pact with myself that most of what I do is going to be redraft stuff because honestly, there's only so much time a man can dedicate to these things, and already I'm sort of over that threshold. In my Keeper League, you have to have the guy rostered by mid-March. So you can't just scoop up a rando on the last day of the regular season and try to keep them. But if you could, I'm betting there are some leagues out there where you can. Maybe, some, not all. We're going to play that little hypothetical of what sort of keeper might you want to grab with 2 days to go in the regular season. That's our eyedroppers worth of off-season stuff here we're going to do on this Tuesday podcast. Rest of this week, we got DFS contest tomorrow with the... got to come up with some new adjectives. I've called him marvelous, I've called him magical, I've called him magnificent. The magnanimous Micah Patria. A lot of M words you can use. Thank you, letter M. Today's Sesame Street episode was brought to you by the letter Upside Down W. I am Dan Besbris. This is Fantasy NBA Today. Thanks for listening as always, everybody. Thank you to the continued questions about the blurbing shifts over here at Hoop Ball. I mentioned on yesterday's show that the blurbing shifts are full, but the wait list is not. And as I said yesterday, the wait list is nothing to scoff at because attrition will take care of at least some of the good folks doing blurbs right now. Sorry, guys. You might even be listening to the podcast, and I hope that this lights a fire under your butt for a long-term thing. But historically, blurbers just flame out. It's not easy. It requires a lot of attention to detail, the focus on Twitter timelines, and just hundreds of people sending tweets out. You got to be ready to go. And it's for long stretches, and it's the way that you hone your fantasy skills before you can kind of graduate to the next level. So you still want to get out here and learn how to blurb and train on it. We are still taking folks for the wait list, and I would venture to say that within the year, you would be off of it. Probably less, honestly, but I'd rather go with the conservative estimate and take the long view. So feel free to hit me up on that. A couple of you did yesterday. If a couple more do today, that's awesome as well. At Dan Besbris on Twitter. DanBesbris. Those of you who have been listening to the podcast all season long, please do rate and review the show. I mean, I've said it a million times, so if you haven't done it yet, you're probably not going to do it. But maybe I'll get the last couple of you with a few more begs, a few more pleads here at the end of the regular season to get in there and drop a 5-star rating or review. Or whatever the max is. That's what we want, obviously. And as I've said before, if you have constructive criticism, let me know. You can hit me up on Twitter. I'll be happy to listen to you. It doesn't have to be in a rating or a review. You don't have to clobber me. I'm more than willing to listen to it. Will I do all of it? No. But some, maybe. I've taken constructive criticism over the years, and I've utilized some of it, and I've mentioned it before. Many of you said, listen, you got to shorten the intros. I've largely done that, and not today. Some of you said, don't talk about your own fantasy team. Well, I've started to do that, but I think there's still tie-in. So when I talk about my own, I want to make sure that the connection is obvious. Here's what I'm seeing on my end. Here's what you might see on your end. So go look, basically, is what I'm getting at on that front. And at some point, I'm going to complain about things going on, so I can't get rid of that entirely. That's all part of the allure. So if you got constructive criticism, you can hit me up with that. At Dan Besbris on Twitter, at HoopBallFantasy, at HoopBallTweets, hoop-ball.com. We're not done here. We got 2 days left in the regular season. We're going to get you through these last two. Maximize your games because half your team is not going to play tonight or tomorrow. Get ready. Watch the news wire, starting lineups, late scratches, stuff like that. You just want to make sure that you get your healthy guys into the lineup. That's the only thing you got to worry about. When you got guys coming up, start times approaching, be ready to go. If you got some late guys on your roster, you might have to bench them if you know the early guys are actually playing. Meaning, if you can get 10 guys going early, you might just have to do it. Because if you wait until the late games and a couple of your guys sit, then you're getting boned out of all those spots. That is not the teardropper that I wanted to mention for today. Oh, big thank you again to Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. Amazing year that it's been and will be with our fantastic offseason coming up. Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company, partners in crime over here at hoop-ball.com. Go to hawaiianisles.com, at HI Kona Coffee on Twitter. We want to get you guys talking about coffee. Let's talk coffee, which makes me not the greatest host because caffeine, I am ever so slightly allergic to it, but I love the smell. That's got to count for something, right? A nice roast, take a big whiff of that. I just can't drink it. But luckily, Aaron Brewski can, and Mike Apotria can, and Josh Millman can, and many others here at Hoopball can, and they are just guzzling it. And so they're wired to the hilt now every time I talk to them. You get these guys to calm down a little bit. HawaiianIsles.com. Search for Hawaiian Isles on Amazon. Send one to your friends. Send one to your coworkers. Send one to your loved ones. They made a great holiday gift. And, you got, what do we got here? We got Mother's Day coming up in a month. That's not a bad one. Father's Day a month after that. Kick it into high gear. Let's get that Hawaiian Isles to their joint. Forget candy. Candy's so played out. Send coffee. Okay, teardropper here, the offseason. I wanted to go through some of the potential max contracts and what that might mean, number one, from what their value could be and those around them, and then also from a keeper standpoint. Does anything get left behind? And there's a few teams, we're not going to go in any particular order, but the one that I will mention, and I saw this pop up on my Twitter timeline today, and I thought that's a cool thing to do for all of the max free agents. Kyrie Irving was the name that floated by when he was getting ruled out for the Celtics' next ball game, where folks are basically saying, look, if Kyrie doesn't come back, that's going to leave a gaping hole in the Boston backcourt. And while the normal logic might tell you to go get Terry Rozier because he's technically the backup point guard, it's probably Marcus Smart that moves from right on the cut line to a very interesting fantasy player. If he can even improve his percentages the tiniest bit at a decent volume and more of a leadership role, then he becomes more than just a steal specialist. So, these are the things that you ought to be looking at. Here's the names that I've got on my list right now. Chris Middleton, Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving, Nick Vucevic, Kemba Walker, Kevin Durant, and Anthony Davis in a potential trade. So we mentioned Kyrie. What does it mean for him? If he goes somewhere else, his numbers are not going to change all that much. But for Boston, it's going to do a ton. So if you could keep a guy like a Marcus Smart, if you can hold on to him and make your decision later in the offseason, you could find your way to an incredible steal. There's a guy that probably was drafted, if at all, in the very late rounds. Rozier, likewise. I mean, it's worth holding on to there. All these guys slide into a bigger role. We've seen what's happened this year when he's not playing. Jimmy Butler in Philadelphia, I don't know that leaves any really obvious pick-up-the-pieces guy. The other dudes likely will do a little bit more. Jimmy Butler's value will go back up, most likely, if he's not playing alongside three other high usage guys. Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid in particular. Embiid is the big one. So he's a guy that I think could end up being a draft steal next year. Kevin Durant, I don't see anything that could change his numbers. They'll go up if he's only with one other superstar. The Warriors, you'll see each of those guys do a tiny bit more. If he's the one that leaves, that's a pretty obvious one, and there's no real keeper pick up there. Anthony Davis / Drew Holiday, if they get sent out of New Orleans, that team goes into maximum rebuild mode. And, the guys you sit on are dudes like Christian Wood, Cheikh Diallo. I don't think you sit on Jahlil Okafor, and I don't know that they give him sufficient minutes next year. We saw Frank Jackson playing a lot of basketball. Elfrid Payton, if he ends up... there's a lot of names on that team that could somehow luck their way into a boatload of usage. Although I can't imagine Alvin Gentry sticks around if all of those other guys are gone. Vooch! I hope you guys are sitting on Mo Bamba. If he doesn't come back to Orlando, that's a wide open center spot. A dude that was playing almost the entire ball game. That's an easy one. Someone should be sitting on that dude. Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. Do we see anybody just step into his job? When he's been out, you've seen the Raptors go smaller, where Freddie VanVleet sees more minutes. They go very small in the backcourt with VanVleet and Kyle Lowry. Danny Green gets bumped up to the small forward spot. You see a little more OG Anunoby. So Freddie VanVleet is probably the grab there. Chris Middleton, if he leaves, you just see more Bledsoe, more Giannis, more Malcolm Brogdon. And I think that's all the names on the list. And so that's your little eyedropper. This is the type of stuff we're going to be spending large chunks of time on. I just wanted to do the quick hitter version here because I saw one of them pop up on a Twitter timeline. I thought, let's spend 3 minutes on that on a show where I got nothing else going on. And that's today, because there were no games last night, friends. But there are plenty tonight, and half your team is questionable. I don't even need to know who's on your team. I know half of them are questionable because that's just how it's going to be. Big cards today and tomorrow to wrap up the NBA regular season. Basically everybody's playing both days. It is, I think, 11 games today and 11 again tomorrow. Am I getting that right? 11 and 11? Memphis is at Detroit. I would expect the Pistons will be playing their normal guys, so that's a pretty easy one. Slot your dudes in, expect them to run. Memphis is going to sit everybody, so the young guys are ready to roll. Justin Holiday, Delon Wright, Bruno Caboclo are the easy starts. Guys like Ivan Rabb are a little bit more fringy. Charlotte is in Cleveland. The Hornets are playing for things, so the usual bunch. Cleveland sucks, but you can roll Larry Nance out there. I think Kevin Love is done for the year. Boston at Washington. No one's playing for the Celtics. Terry Rozier is going to have to do a whole lot of stuff by himself in this ball game. Robert Williams, I think, is the only center that's active in this thing. You could pick up almost anybody because they're going to have to about a 6-man rotation against a team that plays no defense. So Thomas Bryant's going to go crazy for Washington. You'll probably see Bobby Portis play well. They've scaled back Bradley Beal. So I think you still use him even at limited minutes. Satoransky, same general idea there. Washington's an interesting bunch. Philly, they're resting half of their guys, so you could probably throw a Jonah Bolden in there if you wanted. That's not really the place I'm looking, but it's doable. I think going back, by the way, I believe Blake Griffin is questionable last I checked, but I'd be pretty surprised if he didn't at least try to give it a go. But yes, Joel Embiid is out. I think Jimmy Butler is back, and I think J.J. Redick is resting in this one, if I'm not mistaken. It's hard to keep track of all this stuff right now. So you could throw Bolden into the mix. He played well last time Embiid took some days off. No Josh Richardson for Miami, which leaves them down a body. The Heat are they out of it now? I looked at this yesterday, and I already forgot what I found out. The Heat are a game out. No, so they're still hanging in there. This could be quite a night for D. Wade. He's a guy worth checking out. Last home game ever, maybe? Absolutely. Toronto is in Minnesota. I would imagine half of the Raptors sit this one out, so look for some of their backups to go nuts. Freddie VanVleet would be the largest and easiest expected one. But he might sit too, for all we know. You call these names out here. Minnesota, you're sticking probably to the main guys. Wiggins, Cat, Tyus Jones, probably Josh Okogie. That's as far as I'd go. I don't think I'm throwing Dario Saric into the mix. Golden State Warriors are going to be resting half of their guys every other day, so, don't worry too much about that. The Pelicans are a weird one. You can roll with Elfrid Payton. We don't know Julius Randle's status. Christian Wood has been mostly usable. Okafor came roaring back in the last one. The silliness truly continues with this stuff. I think the key is you got to make sure you get guys that are playing. The Knicks, Mario Hezonja is going crazy right now. If Luke Kornet is starting, I think you got to get him in your lineup. For Chicago, Jakar Sampson's got to be a go. Robin Lopez is a maybe right now. They're starting to dial him back a little bit. Shaq Harrison's been pretty startable. Walt Lemon has been startable. Phoenix, their whole team is dead, which means Jamal Crawford is playing huge minutes. Josh Jackson, huge minutes. Dallas is playing whoever they think can lose them ball games, so don't gamble too much on that one, although this is potentially Dirk's last home game, so expect him to probably play 20-something minutes. You could throw Dirk into the mix. I bet he takes 25 shots in this game. Just go, Dirk, go. They don't care about winning. It's a perfect opportunity. It's like Kobe's last game. Just take 1,000,000 shots. He scored 60. Still crazy, by the way. Denver, Utah, this should be a relatively normal game. Houston, OKC, likewise. Portland and the Lakers. The Lakers have gone to an Alex Caruso-led team. You got Jamario Jones, JaVale McGee. They're kind of fun with these weirdos. So make sure you've got guys in your lineup that are doing stuff. This is one of the very few times that I would advocate taking your league and sorting by the last week. Not 2 weeks, not month. You want to go last week. Because weird stuff is happening for guys over their last 1 or 2 ball games. And while it might look like a flash in the pan sort of scenario, it's actually very real. I don't know if Ian Clark's going to go for 31 again, but he did have 24 the previous ball game, and he's playing huge minutes right now. I trust Jamal Crawford somehow. Season finale. Go crazy, Jamal. You're playing for your contract in year 45 or however old you are. Luke Kornet if he's starting. I mean, it's not easy to throw these guys out there and close your eyes, but they're putting up better numbers than the regular dudes. So anyway, that's what's going on tonight. That's what you should be keeping an eye on. You should be following at Hoopball Fantasy because the only way to make sure you get this information as fast as possible is to be Johnny on the spot with late scratches, early scratches, weird backups. It's a fun time. And if you got to make moves a day in advance, drop all your guys that aren't playing on Wednesday, provided you're not in a keeper league. If any of your guys are not playing on Wednesday, you should be dropping them right now if your league does stuff, 24 hours ahead of time. So there's very much a reason to keep on top of this stuff. And if you're in a Roto league, try to figure out if you can make one tiny move. I don't know if it can be done. That, by the way, is a very short Tuesday show. I got nothing else on the docket. I'm not going to stretch this thing out because we all need a little bit of a breather. So we're doing a 20-minute show today. Shortest pod of the year. Tomorrow, with Mike Apotria, last regular season show of the year. And then we'll roll into off-season mode. Thursday will be a little bit of a quick recap of season gone by, a couple of notes. Might do some testimonials on that podcast, maybe a couple of mailbag questions. Friday, I'm hoping again it'll be Brew. If not, we'll have Aaron on first thing next week, and that'll be season wrap-up show. And then we get into the fun of the offseason. I love it for so many reasons. Number one, my voice loves it because it gets a little bit of a break. I don't have to do a pod every single day. Here's who does get to do a pod every single day. I'm so excited about this because we're locking in the schedule now, and I think you guys are really going to like it. So here are the names that you can expect to hear on the podcast this offseason. Myself, Adrian Benjamins, Neil Rochlani, Brandon Marcus, Mike Apotria will likely be joining us from time to time. Coach will be on the show, and the great Ethan Noroff, who's been employed by fantasy basketball websites for the second longest of anybody at Hoopball besides just Aaron. The great Ethan Noroff. Excited to get him on more of our shows. And we're going to be rotating through hosts, so you'll get a lot of different angles on things. You're going to get a lot of different topics being covered. You guys are probably sick of the way that I cover things on a night-to-night basis. You won't have to deal with that anymore. So likely, and this is subject to change, you'll be hearing a podcast on Mondays from myself and Ethan Noroff. Tuesdays, I'll be with either Neil or Adrian, and it might flip-flop. Wednesdays, it'll be myself and my good buddy Brandon Marcus. Thursdays, you'll get Neil and Adrian, or possibly Ethan and Brandon again. And then Fridays, and you may remember this from last offseason, Neil and Adrian will take you through the weekend. I love it. I love these guys. I'm so excited for you to hear more of them. They've got big projects in the works, and we're all going to stay fresh here at Fantasy NBA Today. We're going to be covering every team. Every team gets its own show, and that might just be me going through that. We're going to cover conferences. We're going to cover keeper stuff, dynasty stuff, draft stuff, free agency stuff. We're going to talk betting during the playoffs. We're going to talk playoff results, anything that we can take away from that for next year. It's going to be great. We're going to have mocks. Before you know it, it's going to be season time again. So we do not rest here at Fantasy NBA Today. The whole offseason, we got 5 shows a week. It's just going to be some different voices mixed in there. And I hope you'll interact with us. I hope many of you will stick it out, keep listening. Shows will usually be shorter in the offseason like they are right now, more like a half an hour to 40 minutes instead of 50 to 60. So it'll take up a smaller chunk of your day, but it'll kind of a way for you to stay connected with the basketball landscape. I find this to be a great exercise in staying connected. The hardest thing to do in preparation for a basketball season or a baseball season, whatever sport you work with, is to detach yourself for 2 or 3 months and then dive back in and try to figure out all the stuff you missed all at once. The easiest way to do it is just to listen to a 20 or 30-minute podcast from all of us here at Fantasy NBA Today, and then you'll know everything that happens. Anytime news breaks, we'll cover it. We'll tell you what it means from a fantasy standpoint, from a reality standpoint. We'll have a little fun. Come join us for the last regular season DFS contest. We will have a few during the postseason as well, but this is the last one where you got yourself a full card. It's Wednesday. The room is open already. Only 75 slots because I know fewer of you are actually paying attention to basketball right now than you were a couple of weeks ago. So 75 slots. It'll likely fill up. We'll get probably around that number. Come on down. $3 to enter. Top 20 payout. Number 1 gets a t-shirt. Number 2 gets a goodie bag from Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company, just like always. Folks, I am Dan Besbris. Thanks for listening here on this brief Tuesday pod where we mostly just covered what's to come here on Fantasy NBA Today and Hoop Ball. Big things. I'm so excited. Oh, my God, guys. I'm so excited for all the things we're going to have for you at the start of next NBA season, but I can't tell you yet. I will soon. I'm Dan Besbris. Thanks again. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.